Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Before we dive into today's story, I want to invite you to hit that subscribe button and join our little community here. By subscribing, you'll never miss the personal stories and life moments I share. And trust me, today's story is something truly unforgettable. So, how do I even begin? Imagine a morning like any other, walking into your favorite bakery. The smell of freshly baked bread wafts through the air, cinnamon rolls glisten under the warm lights, and there's a comforting rhythm to the clatter of cups and the soft chatter of early morning customers. That's how my mornings usually start. Coffee in hand, a small pastry in a paper bag, and a fleeting sense of belonging I couldn't explain at the time. I've been a regular at Baker's Delight for as long as I can remember. Over time, it became more than just a bakery. It was a space of routine comfort, a place where I could pause, reflect, and enjoy simple pleasures. The staff always greeted me warmly, the owners smiled, and somehow every visit felt like stepping into a home I had never lived in, yet deeply recognized. Growing up, my life was a tapestry of love, care, and unanswered questions. I was raised by my aunt, who provided a stable and loving environment, but my curiosity about my biological mother never faded. I often asked questions, trying to piece together stories that were always incomplete, or sometimes carefully edited versions of the truth. I had vague memories of whispers, photographs I barely understood, and a longing I didn't yet have words for. And then came that one morning, ordinary in every outward way, when my life quietly shifted. I walked into the bakery, my usual cappuccino in mind, cinnamon roll as my reward, and noticed something strange. The woman behind the counter, a kind-looking lady in her early 50s, fixed her gaze on me with an intensity I hadn't noticed before. She asked softly, "Vamarr, right?" My heart skipped a beat. How did she know my name? We hadn't met, had we? Before I could respond, she continued, "I think it's finally time we talk." In that instant, the comforting familiarity of the bakery was replaced by an electrifying, unsettling curiosity. My mind raced. Could this woman possibly know something about me? What was she about to say? There was a moment of silence, filled only by the soft hum of the morning crowd, and in that silence, I felt the weight of every unanswered question, every longing glance toward the past pressing down on me. It was strange, almost surreal. The bakery had always been my quiet escape, a world untouched by my uncertainties and fears. And now it was the threshold to a revelation I could never have imagined. Weeks before that unforgettable morning, I started noticing subtle patterns, little hints that I hadn't connected at the time. Small moments at the bakery began to feel almost too coincidental. Occasionally, a staff member would casually mention something about my family, details that didn't make sense for a stranger to know. Margaret, the woman who seemed to run everything there, would occasionally look at me in a way that suggested recognition, a flicker of something unspoken in her eyes. I remember one particular morning vividly. I was waiting for my cappuccino when I overheard her speaking with an employee. She mentioned my name casually, and then, almost under her breath, asked, "Has he ever been curious about where he comes from?" I froze. Could she possibly be talking about me? My pulse quickened, and I found myself lingering, unsure whether I should stay or leave, and yet unable to tear my eyes away from her. From that day on, I began paying closer attention. Every gesture, every smile, every subtle glance seemed to carry a hidden meaning. There was an inexplicable familiarity in the way she moved, the way she interacted with customers, the way her eyes softened when she smiled. I couldn't explain it rationally, but something inside me told me she was connected to a story I had been searching for all my life. I started recalling fragmented memories of what my aunt had told me about my mother, how she loved baking, owned a business in town, and had to make difficult choices to protect me. Suddenly, all these little details converged. The seemingly random coincidences, the warm, gentle presence of Margaret, the knowledge she seemed to have about me, even the way she managed the bakery, all began to form a picture too precise to be accidental. Each day, I found myself spending more time there, under the pretense of enjoying my morning ritual, but secretly searching for answers. I'd watch Margaret work, and the sense of belonging I'd always felt in the bakery began to make sense. The curiosity, the longing, the unexplained comfort, it all suddenly had a target, a shape, a possibility that felt both terrifying and exhilarating. Each visit left me on an emotional roller coaster. I worried I was imagining things, yet every encounter seemed to confirm the possibility. I started jotting down small details, memories, and observations, trying to connect dots that might finally reveal the truth. And all the while, the bakery, once a simple place of comfort, had become a stage where the past, present, and a future I hadn't dared to imagine were quietly converging. Then it happened. The morning when she finally spoke my name in a way that changed everything. I walked to the counter, heart racing, palms sweaty. Margaret looked at me with an intensity that made me forget the aroma of bread and coffee surrounding us. "Vamarr," she said, "I think it's finally time you knew the truth." I felt my knees weaken, my mind filled with questions I didn't even know how to voice. She invited me to sit at a small table in the corner, away from the morning crowd. The hum of conversation and clinking of cups seemed distant, like a background soundtrack to the most important moment of my life. Then she began to tell her story, our story. She described the impossible decisions she had to make years ago, the heart-wrenching choice of giving me up to ensure I had a safe and stable life. She spoke of the years she spent thinking about me, hoping silently that one day our paths would cross again. Every word she spoke was a mixture of regret, hope, and unconditional love. As I listened, the realization hit me with a force I couldn't have anticipated. The woman who had unknowingly become a part of my daily life, who had baked the bread I loved, who had smiled at me so many times without knowing the full truth, was my mother. It was overwhelming. I felt joy, relief, and sorrow all at once, tangled in a whirlwind of emotions. She explained how the bakery wasn't just a business for her. It was a bridge to the world, a sanctuary, and a way to remain connected to life, to people, and ultimately, to me. Each loaf, each cinnamon roll, each smile she shared was quietly infused with love for the child she couldn't raise. It was a love expressed through the simplest yet most profound gestures. Tears blurred my vision. I wanted to reach out, to embrace her, to speak 1,000 words at once, but all I could do was sit and let the truth settle in. The warmth of the bakery, the smells, the familiar sounds, the light spilling through the windows suddenly transformed. It was no longer just a place of comfort. It was the site of discovery, of reunion, and the beginning of something profoundly new. For the next few weeks, everything felt like a dream I didn't want to wake up from. Every morning, I returned to the bakery, lingering longer than usual, savoring not only the food, but the moments of connection with Margaret, my mother. It was strange, this mixture of familiarity and discovery, as if I were rediscovering a place I had always belonged to, but had never truly understood. We spent hours talking, sometimes over coffee, sometimes over freshly baked bread. She shared stories of her youth, her struggles, and the moments when she had to make choices that broke her heart yet preserved my safety. And I shared pieces of my life, my childhood memories, the small triumphs, the losses, and the questions that had lingered for so long. For the first time, I felt an unfiltered, authentic connection with someone who shared not just my DNA, but my experiences, my curiosities, and my love for simple joys. One morning, she handed me a warm loaf of bread straight from the oven, her hands trembling slightly. "I've always imagined this moment," she said softly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I reached out, holding the bread as if it were a talisman, a tangible symbol of our newfound bond. In that moment, it wasn't just bread, it was history, it was love, it was our reconciliation in its purest form. I started helping her in the bakery more often. At first it was awkward, my hands clumsy, my timing off, but she guided me patiently, showing me how to knead dough, how to gauge when pastries were perfectly baked, and how to carry warmth and care into every loaf. And as I learned, I began to see the bakery not only as a business, but as a reflection of her soul, a place where love is baked into every creation, and where our connection could grow quietly yet powerfully. The emotional layers of our reunion were profound. There were moments of laughter, like when I accidentally dropped a tray of muffins, and she teased me gently, calling me the clumsy apprentice. There were moments of silence, comfortable yet loaded with meaning, when we simply stood together, watching the morning light dance through the bakery windows. And there were moments of tears, where words weren't enough to capture the mixture of joy and sorrow that came with years of separation. Despite the joy, our reunion wasn't without its challenges. Years of separation had left scars, misunderstandings, and gaps in communication. I had to navigate not just my emotions, but hers, her guilt, her fears, and the weight of choices she had made to protect me. At times, conversations would spiral into frustration or sadness, and I would leave the bakery feeling both closer and yet more distant than ever. One evening, after a particularly emotional conversation about the years we had lost, I sat alone in the bakery, staring at the empty tables and the fading light. My mind raced. Could we truly overcome the distance of the past? Could we rebuild a bond that had been fractured by circumstances neither of us controlled? It was in that moment of doubt that I realized healing isn't linear. It's messy, complicated, and yet profoundly necessary. Over time, we found our rhythm. Small rituals became our foundation. Morning coffee together, sharing new recipes, and laughing over mishaps in the kitchen. Each shared experience became a thread, weaving the tapestry of our renewed relationship. I began to see her not just as the woman who had given me life, but as my mother, fully human, fully present, with dreams, fears, and love to give. The healing process taught me patience. I learned to listen without judgment, to speak with honesty, and to embrace vulnerability. Slowly, the gaps began to close. I could sense her pride as I learned the craft of baking, her warmth as she guided my hands, and her love in every word she spoke. And I began to offer the same, my attention, my patience, my understanding, and my willingness to accept both the past and the future. This period of reconnection also allowed me to reflect on myself. I realized that part of my longing, my curiosity, and my search for identity had always been tied to knowing her. Understanding her story gave me clarity about my own life, my choices, and my sense of belonging. The bakery had always been more than a physical place. It was a symbol of connection, hope, and the invisible threads of love that had endured despite distance and time. By confronting our shared history, acknowledging the pain, and celebrating the joy of reunion, we both began to heal. And I realized that the story of my life wasn't just about discovering my mother. It was about rediscovering myself through her, and understanding that love, patience, and resilience can transform even the most complicated relationships. Reflecting on the journey, I'm struck by the depth of transformation it brought into my life. Finding my mother in such an unexpected place, a bakery that had always been part of my daily routine, felt almost magical, as if fate had quietly guided me toward her. Every moment of connection, every shared laugh, every tear we shed together reshaped my understanding of family, love, and identity. I've learned that family isn't just defined by the years you spend together, but by the depth of connection, empathy, and commitment to understanding one another. My relationship with Margaret, my mother, has taught me that love can survive absence, grow stronger through patience, and bloom unexpectedly in places we least anticipate. Every morning in the bakery now carries new meaning. The aroma of fresh bread, the golden crust of pastries, the soft chatter of early customers, all of it reminds me of the fragility and resilience of life. I see her in a new light, not just as the baker behind the counter, but as a woman who loved fiercely, sacrificed endlessly, and patiently waited for the moment our lives could converge again. There were moments when I look around the bakery, watching her interact with customers, and I feel a surge of gratitude. Gratitude for the ordinary moments that led me here, for the years that prepared me for this reunion, and for the possibility of building memories together now, without the shadows of past uncertainty. Life's surprises are not always gentle. They can shake you to your core, but they often carry lessons and gifts that change you forever. In many ways, the bakery has become a classroom, a sanctuary, and a place of reflection. I've learned about patience, resilience, forgiveness, and the quiet, persistent power of love. While the past cannot be rewritten, the present offers opportunities for healing, joy, and connection that are just as meaningful, if not more so. Through this journey, I've also gained a deeper understanding of myself. The search for identity, the longing for connection, and the eventual discovery of my mother all reminded me that the answers we seek are sometimes hidden in plain sight, waiting for the right moment, the right courage, and the right heart to uncover them. And so, that is the story of how I discovered that the woman behind the counter at my favorite bakery, my mother, was the person I had been searching for all along. A story of surprise, emotion, reconciliation, and love that endured despite years of separation. It's a reminder that life can hide extraordinary moments in ordinary places, and that sometimes the connections we long for are closer than we ever imagined. Reuniting with her has been a journey of understanding, patience, and growth. We've shared laughter, tears, and countless quiet moments that have strengthened our bond in ways that words can barely capture. I now see every loaf of bread, every tray of pastries, and every morning spent in the bakery as part of our ongoing story. A story that is still unfolding, and one I am grateful to live every day. Before I end this video, I want to remind you once again to hit that subscribe button. By subscribing, you'll join me on this journey, and we can continue to explore stories of life, family, and the moments that shape us. Your support allows me to share these personal experiences, the lessons I've learned, and the emotions that come with discovering life's unexpected gifts. Thank you for listening, for being part of this story, and for sharing these moments with me. Remember, sometimes the most extraordinary revelations are found in the places we least expect. The bakery, my mother, and the memories we are now building together are proof that life's surprises can be beautiful, life-changing, and profoundly moving. And as always, don't forget to subscribe and join me for more stories that remind us how unpredictable, challenging, and yet wonderfully rewarding life can be.